My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi, my name is Molly Denham from VEXA Services, and today's quote comes from General James Cartwright, and his quote is, "Don't tell me no, tell me how to make it a yes."
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
With so much on your plate, wouldn't it be nice if ordering food for the office were easy and reliable? My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. With Easy Cater's network of over 100,000 restaurants nationwide, you'll have a huge variety of options near you for any group size, dietary need, or budget. Your food arrives on time as ordered, all supported 24/7 by Easy Cater's team of experts. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm very excited to be speaking with Molly Denham. This is episode 209, and we'll get some good conversation going with Molly in just a second. But if you want to check out the show notes, you can find them at leaderassistant.com/209, leaderassistant.com/209. So Molly, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
What part of the world are you in?
I am in Virginia, just outside of DC.
Awesome. And what's maybe something personal about you? What's a hobby, or, do you have kids, pets?
I do have kids. I have two grown children. I have two grown children who are out of the house. And then we have a retirement surprise who is an 8-year-old now. And so that keeps us busy. And I am also, in my vast amounts of spare time, I bake as a relaxation.
Nice.
My neighbors love it.
I was going to say, what's a recent thing you've baked?
I made sugar cookies for a Girl Scout girls weekend that I had last weekend. They were little penguins and balloons with all the ladies' names on them.
Nice. I'm sure they were delicious. So tell us about your career. What brought you into the administrative world, and what are you up to now? Let's kind of give us a history.
Absolutely. So I have been in the admin field for over 30 years. I started out in the Air Force, and I joined the Air Force when I was 17, and admin is the career field that they put me in. So I went with it and fell in love with it. I did that for all 22 years of my career. And then when I retired from the military, I had a boss who had also retired and needed some help after his retirement. And so I helped him out, and he said, "Well, I will pay you to do this." And I thought, well, that's pretty nice. I could probably turn my skills into something that I could do post-retirement. And then, so I was working for him pretty much as my only client, just him and I working together virtually. And then COVID hit. And I had a lot of people come to me saying, because I'd been doing remote work for about 7 years by then. So COVID hit, and I had a lot of people come to me saying, "We need help. How do we do this remote work?" And it was more than I could take on. So I thought, well, it's obviously an area that needs some help. So I started VEXA Services, which is an actual virtual administration agency. So I employ other admins to fill that void where people need some help, but maybe they don't need a full-time office help. And I've been doing that now for 2 years. And then during that time, I also had been noodling around with the idea of creating software because there's not a whole bunch out there specifically designed for the admin field. And so I talked to a friend of mine who is a programmer, and I said, I've got these ideas. It was really just yellow stickies on a wall, and it was just a bunch of yellow stickies. I said, I've got this idea. What do you think about creating software that will do this? And he said, absolutely, we could do anything. And so I started Vexa Software, and we are building software now, so specifically designed for admin professionals.
Wow, that's great. So we'll talk about the software here in a second, but what's for Vexa Services, what's kind of your model? Mm-hmm. Is it part-time contractors, remote assistants from all over? Do you hire a few full-time assistants and then they each, support a couple of different clients? How does your firm work?
Right. So I have employees all over the U.S. From multiple states. It's all virtual work, and they do have multiple clients. I really only have one admin that has one full-time client because this person needs so much assistance. But the beauty behind remote work is you don't have to sit at a desk for 8 hours. So you can do 2 or 3 things kind of at one time, so you can juggle multiple clients. And so that's what I do. I provide that administrative support. Mainly my clients are independent consultants. I do have some starter businesses when they don't really have the funds for full-time admin, but they still need the help. They need somebody to get them organized, and independent contractors.
Nice. About how big is your team right now?
Right now, I have 6 employees, and they're like I said, in multiple states, and we're covering 9 clients right now. So it's small, but growing and doing well.
That's great. And I know a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of different virtual assistant contractors and firms that hire VAs. What's one of your top tips for those listening who want to get into the remote executive assistant world?
So my top tip to them would be you have to find the perfect client EA match. So one of the things I did was I created software for me that matches my client to the right EA. It's more than just skills. The skills anybody can do. But because of the relationship that an admin has with a principal, you really have to have the personalities that go together well. You can't have one person be a chatty Cathy and the other person be an introvert. It just won't work. And so one of the things that I would tell people is when you're out there, you're actively looking for clients, be selective. There are clients out there, but be selective in making sure you have the right client so you get the right relationship, and that will make it work.
Yeah, that's great tips. So tell us a little bit more, Molly, about the software, Vexa Software. What was kind of the primary, or what is the primary use case that or problem that was on that whiteboard or on those sticky notes?
I was not even technical enough to have a whiteboard. It truly was sticky notes on a wall. So my software is called VAST. And what it does is it takes the calendar functions and the contact functions that we as executive level admin use and just gives us that much more. So for instance, in the calendar, whether you use Google or Outlook or any other calendar function, you have your basic items, where you're going, when, and who's invited. If you have any details outside of that, the only place you have to put it is in that big block of text that Google and Outlook leave for you in the details area. So what I have done is I have created forms that are specific to the event type that have spots for all of those details. And it sits on top of Google and it sits on top of Outlook. So you don't have to get anything new. You don't have to buy a complete new software package. It sits just right on top of it. And it just provides organization. It came about because I have a client who does a lot of overseas travel. And I was putting everything, all of the details, his flight details, what seat he's in, what's his confirmation number, what's the time difference between when he, leaves and when he lands, all of those little things that he wanted to know. And he would get ready for his trip and he would say, Molly, I don't have any of the details. And I would tell him, well, sir, it's in your calendar. But he said, but it's just a big block of information. He goes, I can't sift through all that. I don't have time to sift through all that. And so I thought, well, why are there not forms for administrative assistants? Because we have these details that we are responsible for, and these are details that our principal needs to know, and they're not going to sift through a block. And so I created these forms based on the event type, and then the same concept for the contact. So as an admin, we don't collect, just your phone number and your email address and your home address. I collect a lot of information on people. I collect things like what food do they like? Do they have any allergies? What's their vehicle information? Because I'm constantly doing parking requests. I do a lot of I'm in the defense industry. That's where most of my clients are. So I know their security clearance. I know, some people, I know their social security number or where they were born, their kids' names, all of that. And again, the only place in Google or Outlook is to put it in that details section. So we have created forms for contacts that has that information in an organized fashion.
Okay, nice. So it's just kind of like a, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like a sports car version of
right
of your calendar.
Absolutely.
And
Google and Outlook are absolutely. Google and Outlook are so big. They cater to the lowest common denominator because that's what they have to do because they are so big. We need more. We need, and it needs to be organized. And so that is what I'm offering to our community.
Nice. Awesome. Excited to check that out. VexaSoftware.com, right?
Yes.
Awesome. And we'll put the links in the show notes, leaderassistant.com/209 for all of Molly's networking and websites and all that. So, Molly, let's talk a little bit about administrative professionals as far as career paths are concerned. You said you went into the Air Force. They put you down the administrative career path. How long was it until you realized that this is a career and this is a respectable profession with a path, or did you have to create your own path throughout your time there? Tell us a little bit about your career path, and then just in general, the career paths and lack thereof in a lot of cases for administrative professionals.
So for me, the nice thing was being in the military. The military has a defined career path. They have schools that you have to go to at the very beginning of your career. Do your career for a couple of years, and then you have a secondary school that you have to go to. And then you do your career for a couple more years, and then you have a tertiary school that you have to go to. So it's a defined path that, you have defined skills that you have to know, you have time that you have to put into the job. There's continual learning in between each one just to keep but it's very defined, as the military is very rigid and very scheduled. And when I retired, I found I was trying to continue those skills and try to figure out, okay, what did I miss from, or what's different from what I learned in the military to what is in the civilian world. And the problem that I found was that there's tons of training out there, but there's no organization to it. There's no structure saying, when you're new, this is where you should go. This will help you get started. When you're in the middle of your career, this is what you need to know. If you are going to elevate your career past, certain level, these are the additional items you need to know. There wasn't anything like that to help me. And it was very discombobulated, for lack of a better term. And there is no, at least as far as I can tell, structured career path for the admin community, which is sad because it's a great career field. I absolutely love what I do. And I have to credit the military with giving me something that, some sort of structure that I could use I used it for 22 years, and built a great career out of the military. So I think the civilian sector needs something that will help guide people.
Mm-hmm. What was maybe an example or two of the differences in those levels, if you will, that you worked your way up, within the military structure? Does that make sense?
So, so in the military, and it's every career field, you start out, they call it a 3 level. So you start out, now this is for Air Force, some of the other services may be a little different, but in the Air Force, you start out as a 3 level, and they teach you the very basics. Okay, I'm a little older than most of the other people probably listening. So it was before computers. So I did have a typewriter. So they taught us how to type. They taught us how to do basic filing, of course, because you got to remember this was paper. So you had the big file cabinet. So they taught us how to organize files, and you learned how to write a letter, and the verbiage to use, and the proper formatting, and those kinds of, so the basics. You learn those basics, and you use those basics for 3 to 5 years. It's not just, hey, learn the basics and then let's go on to the next one. It's learn the basics and use the basics, and then you move to the 5 level. And the 5 level gives you a broader understanding of your career field. And in this case was when computers were coming out. And so we incorporated computers into it. We learned, how to take them apart. We learned all of the pieces to a computer, how it all works together, how the internet was created, how it works together. It taught us all of that at that next level. And then again, you use those skills for a few years. And then you go to your 7 level, which was your senior level, which they did, then you incorporated leadership traits, and you go from being the doer to the manager and the mentor for the others who are the 3 and 5 levels coming up. So it was really, a staggered progression. And you just build on top of the next one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, all right, here are the basics. Here's a typewriter. Here's how to type. And then
right.
it was adapting. What was interesting about that progression, as I was listening to you share that journey, is, you could kind of fast forward to today, and there's, my career where I learned Microsoft, or I can't remember what they were called. There were those, the Palm Trio or whatever phones with the actual right. letter typewriter on it. Mm-hmm. And then I had to learn that, and then I'm learning, and then the Microsoft, I was in the Microsoft world, but then like Mac came out with these laptops, the PowerBook and the iBook and all this, and all of a sudden I'm learning that software. And then, fast forward 10 years or so, I'm learning, I go to a artificial intelligence software startup. Mm-hmm. And now I'm learning AI and natural language processing, and learning about all these different things that I'd never, heard of. And, right. And then now it's like the most recent thing, it seems like it's all about this chat GPT and conversational.
Absolutely.
AI and all
of that. And not only that, but, you've got to put in cybersecurity, and how to safeguard everything. it allows you not just your career to expand for the basics, but expand to whatever happens to be the technology of the day.
Right. And it's like the technology, the tools. So it's kind of two-sided. It's probably more than two sides, but there's the tools of the trade that you have to learn and adapt and master as you work your way up. But then there's also, like you mentioned, the leadership and the management and supervising and strategy and all that you have to kind of master on your way up as well. So
absolutely, and as you get, especially with technology, as you go further in your career, it's difficult to mentor or manage younger individuals if you don't understand the new technology. So you've got to do both.
Yeah. What about the education? So like professional development and education. It sounds like you had that built into your career pathing, and like the Air Force was pretty good about that. But
oh yeah, they really were. I mean, there was actual school. I mean, it wasn't, just online or, books or what have you. There's an actual school you go to, for each level. And, you do a lot of networking, which is really nice. You learn, see other people and what is being done around the Air Force in other areas. So that, that was nice. And then it's just standardized. The military obviously is a little bit different than everywhere else because you're moving constantly. But because they have standardized learning, I could go from, I was in Nebraska, so I was in Nebraska and I went to England and everything was exactly the same. I had the skills were the same. I was taught the same as everybody else. So I was put into, I went from being a executive assistant to being in charge of a section that had the websites, they had the Freedom of Information Act, it was a whole bunch of the different skills, but I had already been taught that as part of my standard of learning.
Nice. That's great. So then what's something you would recommend for assistants who are in organizations or companies and environments that do not have that built-in education and they have to kind of fight for it or figure it out themselves?
Yeah, and most of them unfortunately don't, because admin, that's not what their company's business is. So, I get that. My recommendation is to do a lot of research. Unfortunately, it will take time in the front end because I've gone out and there's great training, PACE and that's ASAP has great training. There's a lot of it out there, but it's overwhelming. To me, after my retirement, I went out and I was just overwhelmed by the amount of training. You type in admin training and the amount of information that you get back is just too much. So just take your time and don't just jump into first thing that you see. Really look at what skills they are teaching you and make sure that they are skills that you can use in the future, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, my philosophy is I like to learn things that I'm actually going to use now or in the very near future, because you can remember the things better if you actually apply it.
Absolutely.
So I like to, people are like, oh, I'm going to go take this and then I'm going to take this. I'm like, well, why don't you look at what you have to do in your job in the next 6 months and focus on a training or development that will help you in the near future, and that way you'll really learn it.
Yeah, absolutely. And do an actual, unfortunately, there's not a career path out there the way that the military had given me a career path. But there's lots of tools out there where you can create your own. I know that All Things Admin, they did a great administrative career plan. It's blank, you fill it in and it kind of gives you a starting point. So you're not just looking at a blank slate. So I would recommend, really taking the time to figure out, where am I and where do I want to go? What is it that I want to do? And what skills am I lacking? And what skills do I have, but maybe they're a little bit older skills? I've been through the Microsoft Office training, but I went through it back in, the early 2000s. It's not going to help me much today. So, if that is what I need, then I would probably need to do a refresher.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it makes sense. Well, Molly, thank you so much for chatting. To kind of wrap things up, what's kind of, there's that whole argument that, during COVID, it was like, oh, remote work is awesome. And, you can actually get a lot done if you work remotely and virtual and all that fun stuff. And then now it's like, I think I heard, recently Disney is making people come back to the office, and there's a bunch of other companies that are doing the same, and they want you back in the office now, and this and this. And so what are your thoughts, running a virtual firm, on the whole debate of virtual versus at home?
So I think there's enough playing field for everybody. And I think it will depend upon, I think personally, it depends upon what your company needs. So when I first started with the agency, I had a couple of clients and they said the exact same thing. Now, this was pre-COVID. Keep in mind, this was I don't know, my admin is supposed to sit right outside my office. Why aren't they sitting outside my office? And so I countered with, what is it that you think the person needs to do there? What is it that they have to physically do for you in the office? Well, and it came down, most of the time it came down to, well, I need somebody to open the office in the morning, or I need somebody to have coffee, or, whatever. And I said, okay, well, that's not what, granted, those are duties that traditionally admin do. But if you want an executive assistant, and that's what you're concerned with, then I think you're overpaying somebody to get you coffee or to open your doors and stuff. I think it comes down to, what does that particular job physically have to do? If it physically needs to be in the office, then great. Make your office environment an in-person. If it doesn't, and you want, a little bit more freedom and flexibility, then make it virtual. There's a lot of people who are doing hybrid. And there's plenty of people out there that like both. My husband and I are both admin. I love working from home and being a virtual worker. I can do doctor's appointments. I can do vet appointments. I'm here to pick my daughter up from school. If she gets sick, I'm here. My husband hated it. He absolutely could not wait to go back to the office. He liked that social environment and being at the office. There's more than enough for everybody. But it has to be a smart decision that companies and leaders within the companies make, and not just, it's because we've always done it this way.
Yeah, I think it's you're right. Like, everyone is different. So, I'm on the work from home camp, and I don't know that I would ever, if I can help it, I don't think I would ever go back into the office.
Me either.
Full time. And so, so in other words, you should know what you want and know what you work best, the environment you work best in. But then, it's okay if a company wants to say, oh, we want everybody in the office and whatever, because people have a choice whether or not to work there.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
it also makes it, makes the CEOs and the HR and the CFO and, the gurus that are trying to figure out, like, oh, these leadership teams saying, hey, what are we going to do? How are we going to hire the best talent? Well, you've got to be flexible if you want the best talent.
Right. And it's not only just a talent issue. It could also be a budgetary issue. A virtual worker costs less than an in-person. We have less overhead. The pay is less because you're not truly paying somebody for 160 hours of work a month. You may be able to pay them 100 or 80 hours and still get the same type of productivity that you got before. It really all depends on your particular situation and what your company is trying to achieve with that particular position.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it scares some leaders. And in all honesty, I think it scares some leaders because it's a lot of work behind figuring out what the best fix is and what the best fit for everybody is. That's a lot of work, and it can feel overwhelming to a leader. And it's just easier in some cases to say, everybody go back to work, or everybody is remote. That's an easy decision to make. It's harder to try to figure out how to get the right balance.
Yeah. And it makes people think, well, if I can't see them, they're not working. And it really,
not true.
It really illuminates the weakness in a lot of these companies and a lot of these teams in the sense of they don't even they're not organized enough to know what their team needs to produce. And so they like to just have everybody close so that they can see the busy work and feel like, oh, my team is busy.
And if you truly feel, hey, if I'm not there to watch them, my people are not productive, then maybe you haven't hired the right people.
Right. Yep.
So there's a lot of ways to peel this particular onion.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, Molly. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. What's the number one place, top place? And I'll share all your links in the show notes, but what's the number one place for people to reach out to you?
LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn, definitely.
Awesome. Well, leaderassistant.com/209. For everyone listening, you can check out all the links to Molly's LinkedIn and her website and all that, and reach out and say hi and check out what they're doing at Vexa. And Molly, thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks for the work you're doing with the software and the VA service and all the administrative professional fun that you're up to. So it's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed it.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com